Coming up on Fifth Gear Web TV, I test Volkswagen's newest hot hatch, the Golf GTD. Hello and welcome to Fifth Gear Web TV. In a few moments I'll be testing Volkswagen's latest hot hatch, but first, here's Graham from the office.
Today I want to talk to you about phones, and more specifically the iPhone, because it's amazing. Unless you're an incredibly important carpet sales executive who's got a BlackBerry, or a skanky old student who's got an old Nokia, you've probably got one. And there's one main reason for its world domination, a cheeky four-letter word: apps.
Short for applications, apps are little software gizmos you can download to your iPhone. Some for free, others for a small charge. Amongst the photo editing software and silly games are a surprising amount of apps for your car.
Some help you pass your theory test, others help you remember where you've parked, and some will even tell you the year a car was made. To be honest though, I've already passed my theory test. I can remember where I've parked my car, and I can tell the age of a car by looking at the number plate. What I'm more interested in is exciting applications, and this is my first, Dynalicious.
It uses the iPhone's built-in accelerometer to measure performance data. Next to all the free apps, it looks pricey at £7.49, but it does offer a lot.
It can tell you how many horsepower it thinks you've got, how quickly you do a quarter mile, how many lateral Gs you pull when you go around corners, your acceleration Gs, and 0 to 60 times.
This is a perfectly level mile-long straight. The ideal place to do some performance tests in this, the Skoda Octavia VRS. I'm going to do 3 0 to 60 runs in the Skoda and compare the times this super accurate performance box records to the times displayed by the Dynalicious app. If the times match, Dynalicious is a winner.
Okay, here we go. Run number 1.
They work in similar ways. As soon as they sense acceleration, they start timing.
Performance box said 7.6 seconds. Time to find out what Dynalicious says. There, that figure, 7.67. That's pretty good for something that costs £7.50.
Time for test 2.
Okay, Race Logic Performance Box says 7.8, and the Dynalicious says 7.2, which is 0.6 of a second quicker than the Performance Box. Not that accurate second time round. Test number 3, see if we can claw back any kind of credibility. Test start. Come on, little Dynalicious, I want you to work. Performance box 7.7, and it gets 8.0. 0.3 off that time round. Better than the previous time, but not as good as the first. It's not that reliable.
Overall, Dynalicious stayed within 10% of the performance box's times. Far from a disgrace, but with fractions of a second crucial when testing 0 to 60 times, it's more a bit of fun than anything reliable. App number 2 is the snappily titled A-Smart HUD, which costs 59p. It's designed to act as a heads-up display for your car and shows speed, altitude, the weather forecast, and warns you of nearby speed cameras. The display is reversed so you can read its reflection in your car's windscreen.
It's a decent idea and comes with some good features, but I've encountered one big problem. You can't see it. In bright sunlight it just disappears, but when you get into some shade like this, it improves a little bit, so you can make out, if you look carefully, how fast you're going. But to be honest, you've got a speedo there, it works perfectly well. I think it's a bit dangerous to squint on some fake heads-up display, so not impressed at the moment.
Nevertheless, I'm going to test how reliable the A-Smart HUD's features are. First, by testing its speedo against a TomTom sat-nav.
The company that make the heads-up display claim that the accuracy of the speedo decreases in non-clear sky conditions. It's pretty clear sky now. The TomTom's saying we're doing 50 miles an hour, and if I squint through a little bit of shade, the heads-up display is saying we're doing 50 as well. So when you can see it, it works.
But before it gets too much praise, I've got one final test.
I happen to know that there's a speed camera up here, and because I'm a clever boy. But will Mr. HUD know it's there and beep in advance and tell me how far away it is? Weirdly, as if by magic, that's the beeping noise that's telling me there's a speed camera, and because we're lucky enough to be in the shade, I can sort of see that it says 0.1 miles. So you can't really see it, but it definitely made an audible warning about the speed camera, which is sort of alright for 59p.
So, the software works, you just can't see it in daylight. Because we're a kind bunch, however, we stayed up late just to show it working a bit more visibly at night. Insomniac drivers, take note.
So, if you want a bit of new tech for your car and you're lucky enough to have a Flash Larry iPhone, have a wander down to the App Store. They might be a little bit flimsy, maybe not as accurate as some proper technology, but for the sake of a few pounds, it's probably worth a poke around.
Now for our road test portion of the show. This week I got to grips with the brand new hot hatch from Volkswagen. Take a second look if you think that this is a Golf GTI, because it's not. In fact, it doesn't even run on the same fuel. Say hello to the GTD. It's a diesel-drinking GTI for those running on a budget, but its looks don't tell that tale because, just like a GTI, it's got a wide stance, a honeycomb front, and round the back, a high-level spoiler and twin tailpipes. So the only thing to distinguish this against the GTI are 17-inch alloys and the badge. Diesel hot hatches aren't new for VW. Back in 1982 there was, believe it or not, another GTD. It looked like the Mark II Golf GTI, but it had a 1.6 litre turbo diesel engine, which was quite revolutionary for its time. There have been more sporty oil-burning Golfs since then, but this is the most powerful yet, and it's all yours for £22,000, or just under. Although this car looks like a GTI, it is less powerful by 40 bhp. So the 2-litre turbo diesel engine has 167 bhp, which helps it get to 62 miles an hour in 8.1 seconds and on to 138. But its torque is considerably more, 258 pound-foot of this stuff, which is at its most useful at mid-range, so between 3,000 and 4,000 RPM. It does run out of puff quite quickly after that, so it's just as well you've got 6 gears to go through. If you want an automatic, there is the DSG dual clutch option, which will cost you an extra £1,300. But the combination of this diesel engine with the manual gearbox is by far the smoothest in my opinion. It comes with Volkswagen's electromechanical steering, which weights up the faster you go. And the front-wheel drive chassis is also tuned to the same level as the GTI, and it is a joy to tackle B-roads in with minimal input from yourself. It's incredibly well balanced, and the ride is on the good side of comfortable, but for an extra £705, you can buy the adaptive chassis control, which tightens the suspension and the steering to sharpen everything up. This is where the GTD really begins to make sense, because fuel economy is its whole reason for being, and the figures stack up. It does 53.3 miles per gallon on average. There's also a digital gear change indicator, which encourages you to shift up at the best time to get the best MPG. When it comes to carbon emissions, it has a figure of 139 grams per kilometre, which puts it into tax band E, and that will cost you £120 a year, which is £55 cheaper than the GTI. Step inside any Golf and you're welcomed by a well laid out dash that is really well made. These seats give top-notch support, and you'll be pleased to know that headroom and legroom front and rear has not been scrimped on, even in the 3-door GTD. However, the only sporty feature I could find in here is this, a 3-spoke flat-bottomed steering wheel. And if you don't like the cost option black leather trim in here, you can always go for the standard grey tartan cloth, which harks back to GTIs from the 1980s. The GTD is an interesting package, but for the same £22,000 you could buy Audi's A3 Quattro TDI or BMW's 120D. But the biggest problem this car will have is that it will always be in the shadow of its more powerful GTI sibling, which costs just £600 more. Which is why I'm giving this car a 6 out of 10. And that's it for this edition of the show. Don't forget to log on and join us for more every 2 weeks.